The most successful people in business all have one thing in common. It's not intelligence, it's not connections, it's not capital, and it's not even work ethic, although that helps. It's something that it's not something, it's that someone asks them the hard questions on a regular basis. That's it. That's the whole secret. Um, every Fortune 500 CEO has one. Every top athlete has one. The highest um, performing founders in the world, the ones building companies you've actually heard of, they all pay someone a lot of money, usually, to sit across from them and say things like, is that actually the problem? And most of us don't have that. We make decisions alone. We process challenges alone. We set goals and then miss them, usually, and then quietly adjust without anyone noticing. Um, so today, I want to talk about this skill. It's a practice, really, that nobody teaches you when you start a business. And I think once you understand what it actually is, you'll realize that it's the one thing that's been missing. So here's what happens when you run a business for any length of time. You build a bubble around yourself, not on purpose, it just happens naturally. Your team tells you what you want to hear, not because they're bad people, but because you sign their paychecks, probably. There's a little bit of a power dynamic, whether you acknowledge it or not, and that dynamic filters the information that reaches you. Your co-founder, if you have one, is in the same trench. They're too close to the problem to see it clearly. You're both looking at the same map drawn by the same person, but with the same blind spots as a result. Your partner or your spouse, they're tired of hearing about it. They love you, they support you, but they don't have the context to push back on your thinking in a meaningful way. And honestly, by the time you get home, you're not looking for a challenge. You're looking for someone to say, that sounds tough. Your friends are similar. They'll nod, say, yeah, man, that's rough. Maybe they'll offer some generic advice based on a podcast they listen to, but they don't really know the specifics of the things that you're dealing with. So where does that leave you? It leaves you making decisions more or less in isolation, and isolation is where bad decisions live. Not because you're stupid, not because you lack the information, but because you lack the necessary perspective. You're inside the system that you're trying to evaluate, and you can't see the system clearly from inside of it. There's a phrase I keep coming back to. You can't read the label from inside the jar. That's not a weakness. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's just how human cognition works. We all have blind spots. The question whether you have a process for finding them or whether you just hope they don't matter. Most founders, I think, just hope they don't matter, and it works until it doesn't. So let's talk about what actually solves this. The answer, maybe you've guessed, is coaching, but not in the way most of us think about it. When I say coaching, most people picture one of two things. Either a life coach with crystals and vision boards telling you to manifest your best self, or a rigid corporate consultant in a suit presenting a 48 slide deck about organizational alignment or something. Neither of those is what I'm talking about here. Executive coaching, the real version, the kind that every serious CEO in the world uses, it's a thinking technology. It's a structured process for making better decisions. And that's all it is. A great coach doesn't give you the answers. They're not smarter than you. They're not more engaged with the business than you. they don't need to be. Their job is to ask the question behind the question, the one that you're not the one you're not asking yourself because you're too close to it, or because the honest answer is a little bit uncomfortable. Let me make the distinction clear here, because people confuse all of these things. So consulting is kind of like here's what you should do. A consultant has a domain expertise. They come in, they analyze your situation, they hand you a plan, and you're paying for their knowledge. Mentoring is a little different, right? It's more of like, here's what I did. A mentor shares their experience. They've walked a similar path. They can tell you what worked for them, and you're sort of paying for their history to sort of give you some guidance. Therapy is, let's understand why you feel this way. The therapist helps you process the emotions, the patterns from the past a little bit. You're paying them for the ability to help you understand yourself, maybe. And then coaching is, what do you think you should do, and what's stopping you? A coach doesn't need to know your industry. They don't need to have built a company like yours. They need to know how to ask questions that cut through the noise and get to the real issue. That's fundamentally a different thing, and it's the one thing that most founders have never experienced. The best way I can describe it is kind of like the Socratic method applied to business decisions. You know how Socrates would teach by asking questions? Not by lecturing, not by explaining things, just asking the next logical question and the next one and the next one until the student arrived at the answer for themselves. And the Socratic method works incredibly well in education at getting people to learn how to do things the right way, and opening up the gaps in your knowledge around something. It works in business as well. And that's coaching. That the reason it works, it isn't magic, and it's that when you arrive at your own answer through sort of a structured process like that, you actually then tend to follow through on it. When somebody tells you what to do and you nod and then usually just go do whatever you were going to do anyway. Now let me walk through some different styles because it matters. So there's direct coaching. This is more advisory. The coach draws on their own experience and offers suggestions. This is common in the startup world. Maybe your coach might be a former founder or operator who asks good question, but also shares what they've seen work. It's closer to mentoring in a lot of ways, but with sort of a questioning framework underneath. There's non-directive coaching. This is pure questioning. The coach offers zero advice, zero opinions. It's just a mirror there to reflect your thoughts back to you and make you think a little bit more about them. Their entire job is to help you then think more clearly by reflecting your own thinking in a more structured way. This is the classic executive coaching model. And then you have a sort of a blended coaching, which is what most good coaches actually do. It's a questions first, frameworks when you're stuck. They'll ask and ask and ask, and if you genuinely hit a wall, they'll offer a model or a lens that might help. But they always start with your thinking, not theirs. For most founders, the blended approach works best, I think. You don't need someone who just nods while you talk, but you also don't want or need someone who tells you what to do. You get enough of that already. Here's the part I think will be most useful to you whether you ever hire a coach or not. There's a handful of questions that keep coming back in every serious coaching engagement. I'm not going to walk through them all. And each one, I want you to actually pause and answer it honestly, not in your head. Actually think about it. Preferably, write it down if you can. These aren't clever tricks. They're questions that work because they bypass the stories we tell ourselves and get to what is actually happening. So question number one would be, what would you do if you weren't afraid? It sounds simple, but it's not that simple. Most of us, or most of the time, when we're stuck on a decision, the right answer is obvious. We're just afraid of the consequences, afraid of the hard conversations, afraid of the financial risk, afraid of being wrong in public. This question separates the decision from the fear and lets you evaluate them independently. The second question is, what are you tolerating that you shouldn't be? Everyone has a list. Their underperforming team member, the client who drains your energy, the process that's broken but works well enough. We tolerate things because fixing them requires effort and confrontation. But tolerations are a silent energy drain. They accumulate and they make everything else harder. Question number 3 would be, if you could only accomplish one thing this quarter, what would it be? This is a prioritization question disguised as a thought experiment. If you could pick only one thing, you find out what you actually care about versus what you think you should care about. Most founders have 7, 10 priorities, which generally means they have 0. The fourth question is, what's the decision you've been avoiding? You know exactly what this is. You thought of it the second I asked, probably. The thing you've been pushing to next week for the last 6 weeks, that avoidance, it has a cost, and the cost compounds. Who on your team are you protecting instead of developing? Ooh, this one's a hard one. Sometimes we shield people from challenges because we're afraid they'll fail. But protecting someone from difficulty is the same as preventing them from growing. And usually it means you're doing their job for them, which means you're not doing your job. Number 6, what's the story you're telling yourself about this? We're all unreliable narrators of our own lives. We frame situations in ways that justify our current behaviors. The market isn't ready. I just need more data. It's not the right time. These are stories. They might be true, but a coach's job is to test them, to ask, is that a fact, or is that a narrative you've constructed to avoid action? Something to think about. So where are you confusing being busy with making progress? So activity is not an achievement. Everyone knows this intellectually. Almost nobody lives it. Your calendar is full, your to-do list is long, but how much of it actually moves the needle? If you're honest, the answer is usually less than you'd like to admit. What would you need to believe for this to be easy? All right, this one's an interesting one because it flips the frame a little bit. Instead of asking, how do I make this work, it asks, what assumption is making this feel hard? Sometimes the difficulty is real, but often it's just a belief about what's possible, about what you deserve, about what other people will think, maybe. And that could be creating the friction. If you achieved everything on your plan, would you actually be happy? This is the quiet crisis, the success at the wrong thing. Maybe I've seen founders work 80-hour weeks for years, hit every milestone, and then sit there wondering why they feel empty. The plan was never the problem. The plan was executing someone else's definition of success. And then what did you commit to last time, and what actually happened? This is the accountability question. It's not glamorous, but it's the one that separates coaching from good conversation. A good conversation makes you feel better. This question makes you better, and there's a difference. When you have a process like this in your life, whether it's a coach or a structured practice, whatever form it takes, certain things, they start to shift. The first thing that changes is you stop confusing motion with progress. You develop a filter. Every week, you have to answer. What did I commit to? What did I actually do? Why is there a gap between those two things? That loop, that simple, boring weekly loop, is the single most powerful productivity tool I've encountered. Not an app, not a system. That question, asked consistently, maybe daily or week over week, is groundbreaking. The second thing is that you have to make the hard decisions faster. The hire you've been avoiding, the product line that isn't working, the partnership that's run its course. When you have a regular practice of honest self-examination, these decisions stop festering. You still feel the discomfort, that doesn't go away, but you act on it in the days instead of months ahead. The third thing, and this surprised me, is that you get more creative when your mind isn't consumed with unresolved decisions and unaddressed problems. It frees up space, the mental bandwidth that I was allocating to, should I really be dealing with this, gets redirected to, what if I tried this? Clarity, it creates capacity for you to really bring your business to life and have fun with it again. The fourth thing is compounding. Each week builds on the last. Your self-awareness improves. Your pattern recognition, it improves. You start catching your own blind spots before someone has to point them out to you. 3 months in, you're making decisions at a fundamentally different level than where you started. And the data backs this up, by the way. The International Coaching Federation, they're kind of the main accrediting body for professional coaches. They've actually measured this. Companies that invest in coaching report median ROIs of 7 times the investment. That's a 7 to 1. Not because coaching is magic, but because one good decision made at the right time with clarity instead of confusion can be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Think about it. Think about it the other way, I guess. What's the cost of the wrong hire? Not just the salary, the 3 months of ramp, the team friction, maybe the eventual severance cost, the opportunity cost of what you could have done with that role. One bad decision that a single honest conversation could have prevented. That's the real ROI, not the conversation itself, but the catastrophe that you maybe avoided. Right, so here's the problem. If coaching is this effective and the evidence says that it is, then why doesn't every founder have a coach? Two reasons, I think. The first is awareness. Most people generally don't know that this is what coaching is. They're thinking about life coaching. They think it's all woo-woo-ish stuff. They've never experienced the structured, question-driven version that actually works. So they're not even aware of it. The second is cost. A good executive coach charges, $300 to $500 an hour. Most work on retainers, $1,500, $3,000 or more. For a trusted startup CEO, that's fine. For an independent founder, and I think you and I probably would agree that companies are going to end up becoming smaller and smaller, one-person operations. We can't, as a single solo founder or team of 2 or 3 people, afford to have a coach at that kind of price. So yeah, that's a real barrier. Not impossible, but it's significant. And that cost barrier, that creates a strange situation. The founder who needs coaching the most, the ones operating alone, making every decision themselves, blind to their own blind spots, with no board, no advisory team, those are the ones least likely to have access to it and the most in need. So I kept running into this problem, not just for other people, but for myself. I wanted the structure of having a team of advisors. I kind of missed that from the days when I was a regular employee. I wanted the questions, the conversations. I wanted the accountability loop. But I didn't want to spend, $2,000 a month on it when I could build something that does the hard part. So, yeah, I built it. This is Coach. It's my AI executive coach, and it runs on my computer. It's kind of like a chatbot, and it's built on the actual frameworks, kind of stuff that I just went over. The Socratic questioning, the accountability loops, blending the coaching models, and let me show you what it looks like to get set up. So let's get started here. I'll say my name is Matt. My company is Scalar Shift. And what do? I'm a tech founder focused on AI and business. And I build and sell e-commerce focused products, let's say. Now, I don't want to be in the middle of all of these things, so I'm going to let you, as the user of the app, plug in your own keys, and you have your choice of Claude, OpenAI, or Gemini, and you can plug in your key. Let me just go ahead and get one here for that. All right. So it looks like a chat, like an instant messenger, and you can connect this through looking at your profile info at any time in the future, and you can connect it to Telegram so that you can talk to this on the go. And there's sort of a walkthrough on how to do that. You can connect an integration if you have like an internal tool that you can expose for accessing your business information, and it can pull that information and be proactive about talking to you about your business performance. It's a very cool feature if you can set it up. There is a schedule, and this is kind of what makes it more than the normal bot. It will prompt you every morning with a morning stand-up, get you to commit to some things to do every day. At the end of the day, it will check in to see if you actually accomplish those things. You'll get a weekly review, daily questions, and it gets at your time zone to make sure that actually shows up on time. And you can override the prompt as well. There's a pretty good prompt that is baked into it, but I left this open for customization, which is cool. All right, and so let's say hi, right? And so we immediately get stuck into these loops. So let's walk through a live session. So when you start a conversation, it doesn't ask you, how can I help? It's going to ask something like this: what are your priorities? And as you go, it'll build up there is an internal memory here as well. So it starts to learn more about you and will pick up on some of your habits. It'll self-identify things that you tend to let slide on your commitments and push back against those sometimes. And the nice thing about this app is it's like a chat, but it lives up here in your task window bar, and it'll notify you through the day when it needs to. If you're doing something and it's like, I'm going to send out an email at 1 p.m. for marketing, it will check every hour through the day, and if there happens to be something important that it knows it should ping you on, it will send you a message proactively to make sure that you get it done on time. And so it is acting like that coach that you need to tell you to work harder and stay on top of things, stick to your commitments that you made that day or that week, and it acts in this very familiar sort of user interface that carries over to your phone if you connect it to Telegram, or if you plug it into the Telegram app. If you're running Telegram as an app, you can talk to it there as well. So you could probably build something like this yourself if you're technical, but the frameworks, the question flows, the accountability system, the memory system, that really took real effort to get it right. And at $49, this is a pretty low bar just to skip the build process and get started with your own coach today. So the link is in the description somewhere on this video. And yeah, the most expensive thing in your business right now isn't a tool that you're missing or a strategy that you haven't tried. I'm sure it's the question nobody's asking you, and make sure something in your life is asking it. And hopefully, coach can be your coach. So check out the link, read the page, all of the other things that I didn't get to in this video about it. And I'm going to keep updating the app. So, even if you went through the this here. There's always new stuff coming out, and I think this is super powerful. It's made me better business operator, founder, and I think it can make your life a little bit better too.